Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Corrupting and Crime Daily. I am Rebecca, your host, and I'm going to talk to you about what's been happening in the trial, Colorado versus Officer Chuniak and Officer, do you call them officers? Well, he was a lieutenant, Lieutenant Chuniak, firefighter paramedic, and firefighter paramedic Cooper. My hat's like wanting to tilt today. Maybe it wants to go this way. Let's hope. It's probably going to lean anyway. Oh, I don't want to forget the 12 days of Christmas. We're on day 11 now. Well, it's actually the 15th or what's today? The 15th? 14th, 15th? I don't know. But I've got day 11, and then the last day, probably Sunday during the live, I'll open number 12 on Sunday. So let's open number 11. Look, it's a little polar bear with a scarf and a Christmas hat. How cute. What is it? 11 Piper's Pipe? I don't know. I don't know that song at all. 5 golden rings. Oh my gosh, more drills. This is from Diamond Painting Drills. There is a link down in the description. This Advent stocking full of stuff, wonderful stuff, is no longer available. But they have lots of great sale items you can get for stocking stuffers for the person that you might know that loves to diamond paint. This thing is slipping off my head. More diamond drills. What did we get? Oh my gosh. These are the glitz drills, you guys. 5 packages of glitz drills. Glitz drills. Say that 3 times fast. Ecru. There's ecru. Pretty. So these have like a glitter on top of the drill. These are the green. Red. Yeah, big surprise, right? Red. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's 2 different greens. Look at this green. Oh, so pretty. 2 different greens. And my favorite, black glitz. Look how gorgeous those are. So those are all available down in her store. And look, they could just fit right in your Christmas stocking. I got mine in square. They come in square around, I believe. If I'm misstating that, I apologize. Oh my gosh. So many wonderful items in this purchase. Oh my gosh. I'm very, very happy with this Advent purchase. So like I said, tomorrow will be number 12. Drummers drumming, I guess. So let me show you what I was working on last night. Well, a couple of things. So one of my subscribers, Dawn, everybody knows Dawn. Hey, Dawn. She wanted a hat in black. Well, there you go, honey. It's got poofy white stuff all over it, from the white. But I used the white twinkle yarn here, and black. She has a black coat. She wants to match her coat. I get it. So some people like hot pink. Some people like black. Anyway, but I was working on the gnome for Christmas. Here's what I have so far. This is her, her hair coming down one side. Let me show you what it's going to look like when I'm done. It will look like, where is it? Hold on, this girl here. It'll have a little candy cane up here, the green hat, with a red pom-pom. Yeah. Okay, I should have done one with a hot pink, right? Okay, so that's what I'm working on. So let me get my notes in front of me so I can tell you. The Last Witness, I listened to The Last Witness for the prosecution before they arrested. So just real quick, I'll recap really quick. These 2 firefighter paramedics are on trial. They responded to a police request for medical assist. they had encountered a gentleman who was wearing a ski mask and a long sleeve jacket in August at 10:30 at night. They got called because he looked suspicious. Or it just wasn't, yeah, it's just weird. I'm sorry, let's just call a spade a spade. It's just weird. So they get called out, and the guy he's not cooperating at all with the police. And they're taking him down, they're doing a carotid hold, and he's vomiting into the mask. They take the mask off. So all of this is occurring before EMS gets there. But the two firefighters, they get there, they see what they think is excited delirium, and the protocol for that is to give ketamine, but they didn't have it on them in their medical bags because it was out of stock, nationwide shortage of that drug. But the ambulance, which is a different company, Falk ambulance was dispatched at the same time, but took another 6 minutes after the EMS arrived to get there because they were on another call and coming from across town. So they get there, they have the ketamine's administered, and unfortunately, Mr. McClean has what the medical examiner testified was an idiosyncratic reaction to the ketamine, and he passes away a few days later. He ends up brain dead from a prolonged lack of oxygen to his brain. Yeah. So the three police officers that were involved have already had a trial. Two were found not guilty. One was found guilty of reckless manslaughter, I think. So these two firefighters are now on trial for reckless homicide. And we're going to get into those charges in a few minutes. We're going to talk about that. But the last witness of the prosecution, he takes the stand. Now, this guy, bless his heart, another black man witness, went to Howard University, very knowledgeable in the field of pathology. Now, pathology, when you go into pathology, you can go one of two ways. You can become a forensic pathologist. That's the person that works for the medical examiner's office and he does the autopsies. Or you can go into anatomic pathology, and that's the guy that's sitting in a lab looking through the microscope at little slides that come out of surgery. Like, for example, maybe maybe the physician suspects you have breast cancer. They take you into surgery. They do a biopsy right there. This is not how breast cancer works. I'm just using it as an example. Or for any kind of a tumor. They're dissecting the tumor and they take some of that tumor because they want to biopsy it, and they send that slide immediately to the lab. It gets read by an anatomic pathologist, and the results go right to the surgeon so that, he knows whether he has to get the margins and, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, this man who went to Howard University is an anatomic pathologist, the guy with the microscope. Yeah. And he specializes in surgical pathology. So, but he has a special interest in medical, how did he put it? Medical investigation of deaths or something. So he mentioned that like he had been at the airport and he had some extra time before his flight. So he decided he'd go to the scene and look and see what had happened. And I don't know. And he gets hired by the Attorney General to give an opinion in this case. Now, the defense did not object. I would have. He's an anatomic pathologist. They don't render cause of death decisions. This guy did. So he said he reviewed the videos, he reviewed, the medical records, the autopsy, reviewed the whole autopsy, met with the medical examiner because he wanted additional slides from the heart. He said he saw no need for a chemical restraint. So he didn't see any indication based on what he was seeing on the films, the body cam footage, that Mr. McClean needed ketamine. So he looked at all the autopsy material, all the slides and stuff of the heart, because there had been mention in the autopsy about a narrowing of the coronary artery, which Mr. McClean had. But that artery was no longer available. So he did want to see the slides and of the heart and the lungs. So he reviewed all of those. So he said the heart was normal for his age. And he did see evidence of asthma in the lungs, but he said, based on all the medical record review, he hadn't been treated for asthma in years. It was something he had as a child, and that was ruled out as a cause of death. So he said he did not see any evidence of excited delirium. He said he went through. They walked him through different sections of the body cam chronologically, where he pointed out. I've got yarn all over me. All right, where this doctor pointed out, here's where I think he vomited. Here's where I think this happened. Here's where I think he's starting to get lack of oxygen. And he's putting a lot of it on the police, which maybe that's why the defense wasn't objecting. He said he's starting to decline. His acid is being built up in his body because he's exerting himself. Uh-oh, I got a message. Anyway, the acid in his body is building up, and he's also, when you exert yourself, sometimes you vomit. And he gave an example. He said, when I was younger, I was on the football team, and the coach would make us run back and forth on the field, and he even had buckets out there in the end zone because he knew when we got down, we were going to throw up. Anyway, so he said, here's what he needed. He needed a physical exam by the EMS people when they responded there. But a physical exam. Excuse me, I'm going to do a physical. Um, they needed to at least take his pulse and then measure his oxygen level with a pulse oximeter, because he needed fluids and he needed oxygen. That would have cured him. He didn't need ketamine, according to this expert. So he says, I don't know if Mr. McClean would have died from what law enforcement did to him absent the administration of ketamine. Nobody knows. He thinks that law enforcement did cause him to aspirate, which I thought was interesting. So now, even amongst the prosecution witnesses, there's no agreement about this cause of death, whether the officers contributed to it or not. There's no agreement amongst their own experts. So how do they expect the jury to buy into this? So he did admit that he had never seen a death from ketamine overdose, and he believes that's what it was. It was just an excessive dose of ketamine. He did not believe it was idiosyncratic, which is what the medical examiner testified that it was. He said idiosyncratic means you don't know what caused his death. Well, we know what caused his death. So, and he did say CPR can cause an aspiration. So there you have it, folks. So, so after his testimony, the prosecution rested their case. So the judge said, by then it was later on in the day of day day 9. I'm getting the days of this trial mixed up. Day 9. Anyway, what comes next chronologically is that the defense always makes a motion for judgment of acquittal. I've talked about this many times, but the judge says, he told the jury to come back. He excused the jury, said, come back tomorrow at 9:30. And then he told the lawyers, come back at 8:30, and here's some questions that I want you to answer for me. Because part of the charges are not just the reckless homicide, but some of the lesser charges include, they're called enhancers. If you commit a felony and you use a weapon during the commission of a felony, you get extra time because you used a weapon. So he said, I want you to focus on answering the question about whether or not ketamine is a weapon. So when they came back the next morning, they made their argument. And of course, the prosecution is saying that there's a two-pronged test to determine if the thing or the object used to commit the injury or death is a weapon. And they used an example of a case where a person used their foot to kick somebody, and that somebody fell down the stairs and died. So, did they intend to use that foot as a weapon? And that was the question that the court had to figure out. Was it the intent of that person that used their foot to use that as a weapon? Yes. And was it used as a weapon? Yes. So prosecution's argument was if you're not intending the consequences, usually when you pull out a gun, you're intending death. Okay, so there we have it. But if there is no intention there, and you're using an object, is how did they say it? There, the next question becomes: did you intend the results? Did you intend to use this as a deadly weapon? And they argued yes, they did. They were aware of what the results were. They were aware that this was going to result, that it could result in respiratory depression and death. So, not so fast, prosecution. So the defense gets up and said, forget the fact that these are medical personnel. It's a drug. They were using it to help him. That was their intent. Their intent was to help the guy, because they wanted to calm him down so that acid buildup would stop. So they never intended that ketamine to be a deadly weapon. So the judge asked a few questions. There was another case they cited where the person used a dull knife to injure someone else. And so the question was that really a weapon if it really could not cause the injury? And the court said it depends on what the intent of the user was. If the user intended to use that knife to cause injury, then yes, it's a deadly weapon, even though it's dull and it didn't result in the injury. But here, the defense argued no, that these guys did not intend that ketamine was a deadly weapon. And so the judge entered his ruling, and he denied the motion for judgment of acquittal as to all the other charges. But he says, as to this great bodily injury enhancer, yes, I'm granting the defense motion. He says, I do not find that the ketamine, he says, I do not see that the prosecution put enough evidence in front of the jury that this was a deadly weapon. A good result. I agree with that result. I do. I don't. So no enhancer on the charge of. I'm sorry. I keep looking at myself in this hat. No enhancer on the charge of reckless homicide, but you're still proceeding with the rest of the trial, the reckless homicide charge. So now the defense is putting on their witnesses, and because it's Friday, and you know what we do on Friday? We do a Christmas dance. Well, during Christmas time, ready? Out of everybody, out of your chairs, ready? Friday dance, Friday dance. Okay, that's all you get. Merry Christmas. Yeah. So I'm going to listen to the day 10 today. What the witnesses that were put on yesterday and the witnesses from today. I'm going to listen to those, and I will bring you the rest of that testimony on Monday. We'll start fresh with the defense's case. And this is going to take a while because we've got two defendants, remember, and they each have a legal team. So one defendant gets to put on their case, the other defendant gets to put on his case. So we're, this thing's going to go through Christmas at least and probably beyond. I don't know when the judge is going to, because Christmas is on a Monday. So I think Is he going to give him Friday off, or I don't know. I don't know that they've talked about it. So anyway, or is he trying to get this done before the end of next week? I think that's probably his intention, is to get it to the jury before the end of next week so they can deliberate and then go home for Christmas. That's my thoughts. Now, I'm seeing a lot of videos out there about Charles Adelson and jail phone calls between Charles and his mother Donna that occurred after he was convicted. Now there's a week-long period of time between the time that Charles Adelson was convicted for the conspiracy to commit the murder of Dan Markell, the FSU law professor, back in 2014. A week later, Mama, Donna Adelson, who we suspect was involved in this conspiracy as well, was captured at the airport trying to flee with a one-way ticket to Vietnam. So she was arrested. So there were some phone calls that took place during that week. So I did listen to some of those phone calls, and it's very apparent that they're trying to lay sort of they know that they're being recorded. At least Charlie knows he's being recorded, and they're very critical of the jury for they didn't get it right. Mom's calling the jurors stupid. Like, you don't want to call the people from Leon County who are going to be deciding your case, Donna, stupid, because that ain't going to go over well. And I can bet you there's not a person that lives in that county that hasn't heard of this case, because there's already been 3 trials. So in any case, I did hear the phone call where she said that she was thinking about fleeing and she was looking for a place to go to. She had considered Korea, she had considered China, somewhere where it was somewhere where the prosecution would have difficulty extraditing her back to this country. And she was leaving with her husband. And then she talked about her and her husband going to sleep and not waking up. But then later on in that same phone call, she mentions that she's not suicidal. But then she talks during the whole phone conversation about, well, I'm put together a trust for your son, Charlie, and I'm getting my will in order. And yeah, so there you have it. And then one of the jail phone calls that I heard, Donna is reading an email or a text message from Wendy. She's reading that to Charlie Adelson. And Wendy is saying how she's innocent. You didn't participate in any of this. And so she's reading that to Charlie's. And when she's done reading it, she goes, but she was. So I think Wendy's arrest is forthcoming here soon, guys. Because I can bet you that's not all they have. I bet you they've got some more. And yes, I said they were aware that they were being, at least Charlie was aware that jail phone calls are monitored. I'm not so sure about Donna, or maybe she knew and she forgot, and this just came out because she's reading this text message from Wendy saying, I didn't have anything to do with it, and apparently Mom says, yeah, you did. So she might be singing to the prosecution. I don't know if she wants to protect her daughter. Like, that family has just fallen apart. Wendy is the only one left. There is another brother now. Charles and Wendy have an older brother who's a doctor, and he lives up in the Northeast somewhere. Doesn't have anything to do with this family for obvious reasons. But because he's like, whoa, no thanks. And so Wendy is left with her 2 boys. And who's going to raise those 2 boys if she goes to jail? Well, I suspect Mr. and Mrs. Markell, the victims' parents who live up in Canada, might get to swoop in and get the boys at that point. They'd be the only ones left. Yeah. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you about those jail phone calls. they're difficult to listen to, or I would play them for you. They are difficult to listen to. If you see them on another channel and you want to give them a listen, you know, knock yourself out. But I kind of gave you the gist of what's on there. So, of course, Charles is professing his innocence. Jury got it wrong because, he knows he's being recorded. Jury got it wrong. I didn't do it. Whatever. We know you did. Jury said you did. Okay. So that's the show for today, guys. Happy Friday. It's raining here. It's been raining all morning. And I hope you have better weather than I do and that you get the rest of your Christmas shopping done. I'm going to be a guest tonight on DP Addiction Adventures. If you see this and you're, before then, that's tonight at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. I had to get it right. Yeah. So check that out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.